All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Buckeye Weekly Podcast. I'm Tony Gerdeman here, as always, with Tom. Or Tom, how's it going?
Tony, I woke up this morning to walk the dog, and it was 58 degrees outside. And you know what I thought? Feels like football.
Feels like football. It certainly did. We are out here we are currently still here at the Ohio State University Woody Hayes Athletic Center following practice, number 2 of fall camp, following interviews with Brian Hartline and Matt Patricia and Jeremiah Smith, Carnell Tate, Bryson Rogers, Brandon Inniss, David Adolph, Mylan Graham, and I think I got everybody.
I think you got everybody. You got everyone that was at my table.
So we're going to discuss what we saw today, what we heard. Of course, we've got some super chats, regular chats. Go ahead and throw them in there, and we'll get to them. As I think we probably have to be out of here like 12:30, same as yesterday, perhaps, as I talk this out to the rest of the team. And
just keep raising the tone of your voice.
So again, this was not a great day for viewing the quarterbacks, Tom, because the quarterbacks were on the far side of the field.
Yonder.
With people in between, players in between for much of the day as well. So, and from what we could see, a lot of this is, again, just swing passes, dump offs, check downs, not a lot of downfield stuff. So I don't know that there are any grand conclusions to be made from the quarterbacks today.
No, I don't think anyone's ready to proclaim a starter. I did think that Lincoln Kienholz had another nice day. There were a couple downfield balls that I saw. You know, there's 2 plays going on and 2 different fields at the same time, so you're kind of looking back and forth, and sometimes they're happening at the same time, so you can only see one at a time. I saw a couple downfield throws. He had a nice one to Bryson Rogers at one point. He had a nice throw to Carnell Tate at one point. He's looked very much in control of things, and that's not to say Julian Sayin hasn't. It's just there were a couple times that I looked and saw downfield throws. It feels like the check down stuff, that's been there very consistently. Both guys have done a really nice job with that. I saw a couple times when Kienholz had a nice ball downfield. I don't remember a Sayin one that was kind of comparable, and there were just a couple of Kienholz. I'm always very reticent to draw real firm conclusions from a bunch of little anecdotal pieces of data, which is, we don't have a head-to-head. And you saw numbers coming out of the first practice, like some people were kind of putting out, here's the passing stats, and it's like, I don't know which portion of practice that was from. That was not comprehensive throughout the day, so I would be a little hesitant to draw like real firm conclusions from like, well, his completion percentage is X versus Y. It's, there's a reason that the coaches walk out of here every day and say, well, we really got to get back on the film and look at the film. I mean, Jeremiah Smith talked about that when he was talking. Matt Patricia talked about that in terms of defense. It's just you're looking at individual things or watching one area of the field, and when you're doing that, you're missing a bunch of other stuff.
Yeah, I will say I did see Lincoln Kienholz taking a lap.
He did take a lap.
Something happened.
I think that might have been a fumbled snap because I don't think I saw an interception. But, you saw a couple times. I did not see Julian Sayin take a lap. I did see Eli Bricklayer take a lap.
Brick Handler.
I made a put-in request to Jerry Emig that he change his name to Eli Bricklayer because I'm never going to get it right, and I'm very sorry, but at some point it's not my fault.
If you get a petition going, like 400,000 signatures, somebody has to legally change your name.
Yes. Change.org thing, it worked in 2020.
You have to legally change your name just to make it easier on people.
Yeah.
So, again, with the quarterbacks 2 days in, pads go on pretty soon, and then still can't hit the quarterbacks.
Right.
But, it's been interesting to watch things moving, and again, these are split fields, so this quarterback will have 2/5 of a starting offensive line, and this quarterback will have 3/5, and this quarterback will have 1/3 of the starting receivers, and
Jeremiah Smith was on one field, Carnell Tate was on the other field,
and Will Kazmarek was in and out today in terms of his availability. So there is no 1 and 2.
Yeah.
And I'm watching people like trying to write down the defensive line and the offensive line. It's like it's all just a mix. Like what you came out of spring knowing is still the same, other than Bo Atkinson is now in the mix. So overall with the quarterbacks, it was interesting to see again with the split fields. They're running the same plays, and it looked to me like they were running some RPO stuff because on this field it would be a run, and on this field it would be a pass. And I'm wondering if The coverages are different because if they're not, then they should be the same. Like the read should be the same unless the coverages are different. And so then again, this guy throws a completion, but maybe it's the wrong read. And that's what we talked about yesterday, where maybe you go 15 of 19, but if you're not watching the first read long enough and you're checking down immediately and you're completing a pass versus somebody else going 6 of 14, but reading the right thing and throwing it and having the number 4, 5, 6 receiver drop it.
Or not get open.
Right, so that's the plus play, and the completion over here is the negative play. So it's hard to just judge on completion percentage. This is not the spring game, Tom. You can't just base everything on statistics.
Yeah, this is all of this stuff. I think is legitimately too soon to tell on the quarterbacks. There was stuff that I don't think was too soon to tell. Right. Number one, I think very positive news. We should get into the Eddrick Houston thing very quickly because that was sort of the big news of the day one of fall camp. There was stuff that came out late on Thursday evening that, it's not, you're far from the worst case scenario. He was out there, he had his helmet on, he had a big brace on his right knee, and it seems like, he wasn't out there doing a bunch of stuff. He was kind of going inside and working with the injured guys. So he was not out there when they're doing 7-on-7 kind of stuff or whatever, 11-on-11. But he also was out there running through individual drills. Like this is, I think there was an immediate concern. Is this a season-ending thing? Definitely not a season-ending thing. He did not look super thrilled to be having to leave. And, at one point said something, just was not real thrilled about having to keep going back and forth. But, this is based on where we were 24 hours ago with this feels like wonderful news for Ohio State.
Yeah, crisis averted. He was walking fine. Mm-hmm. You didn't see any noticeable limp. It is it's a nice sleeve and brace that he's got going on for stability. Matt Patricia was asked about it, and was it did you breathe a sigh of relief? He's like, well, it's always good when they're still out on the field.
Yeah.
So even though he's not practicing, he's watching everything. He's taking it in, and he's not just he's just rehabbing today. He's not even anywhere near the field because he's too his knee is too messed up. That's not the case. He's out there. He's walking around. He's watching. He's taking it all in. The whole mental rep aspect of things, and just being out there, I think that's a sign. I don't know how quickly he's going to get back to practicing. They're going to take it very, very slowly, and be as cautious as you can. But I don't think this impacts his availability for Texas.
I wouldn't think so. My guess, and I am not a doctor, but my guess would be days to weeks rather than weeks to months. Where, and if he doesn't play for Texas, I would certainly expect him to be ready for Washington. We'll see. You have setbacks. You have stuff that doesn't heal as quickly. Maybe he's Lathan Ransom, I remember them talking multiple times about what a fast healer he was. So everyone's body's going to respond a little differently, and we have not gotten a diagnosis on this. Yeah. It's a right knee. He's out with a knee right now, and it's like, okay, can you be more specific? No, in fact, we can't.
Then you're not on Twitter enough, Tom.
Well,
because we've seen the slowed down videos. We've got the doctors. Kevin even added a doctor who was famous on Twitter for diagnosing football injuries. It looks like a hyperextension. He'll be fine or whatever, as long as it's not this or this. If it's just this, and then word comes out that it's, I say, relatively minor compared to what it could have been.
Oh yeah.
And so now that's. As I said, crisis averted, and they can move on to the next thing. Tywan Malone getting a lot of reps in his place with Will Smith, because even Cade McDonald and Will Smith are your 1 and 2 at nose tackle, which we assume it'll be Cade McDonald, but again, as many reps as you can get for the other defensive tackles, they need them.
Well, it feels like this is one of those things that could be a blessing in disguise, where this time last year, you had the virus going through the offensive line room, and it completely blew up the depth chart, and you had guys all over the place and in and out in different positions, and you're just mixing and matching day to day because you never know who you're going to have. And this time last fall, everyone's pulling their hair out in this building over that. And then you get partway through the season, and it's like, well, good news. We've seen a bunch of Donovan Jackson at tackle, because there was a while where we had to throw Donovan Jackson at tackle to have a functional practice. And then when you needed Donovan Jackson at tackle, he had been there, and it was okay, and you had a lot of reps, and you kind of knew he could do it. This is something where you came into the spring, and really out of the spring, knowing depth at the defensive tackle positions was the single biggest question mark on this team. Now you're getting an opportunity for more reps for Taiwan Malone with the ones, more reps with, with Will Smith, more. I mean, you're just churning guys. Mm-hmm. And would you love to have Eddrick Houston out there because he's still relatively young? Absolutely. You would love to have Eddrick Houston getting those reps, but if he's not getting those reps, well, you're getting more reps for guys who are going to need them. Jason Moore, you've got to get those guys out there more because you're going to need more than just your ones against Texas, and Texas is this month.
So there you go. There's the two main stories of practice. That's basically no news on the quarterback, good news on Eddrick Houston. Let's talk about some of the other things that we saw in practice today that impressed me. I can start with Turbo Rogers, freshman running back. And again, running backs in camp, no pads, no tackling. Like, you can only blow up so much, basically. But every time we've watched him in these two practices, yeah, sure, he comes out of the scrum because there's no tackling, but he just looks so slippery, so quick, and hard to find.
Yeah.
Because you're like, I don't even know what's going on, and then here comes Turbo Rogers out of it. That he's been impressive, and he wasn't here for the spring. And so I asked Brian Hartline, with all of these caveats, look, I know you can't make any judgments about a running back, but what have your thoughts been? And he's like, well, just like we've said, you come in and you're behind everything. You're learning how to be a Buckeye. You're learning what the standards are. You're learning all of these different things of how you have to operate, let alone what's going on the football field. But he's wants to learn, has a ton of energy, and you can see it out there every single time.
For sure. And yeah, just getting here in June, this being your second practice, like, you're still learning how they practice here. And I know they kind of talk about it and they will kind of dry run it, but they have not had everyone out here with the coaches and footballs and running a full practice before. So that was Thursday was your first practice, Friday's your second practice. I remember when Quinn Ewers got here in 2021, and it was like he's trying to figure out where the locker room is, And Turbo Rogers has been here since June, along with some of the other guys, but you're still, your first time, your second time, you're still sort of figuring out, okay, I know we're running. Where are we running? Okay, we go to this station next and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, he was someone who you see these flashes, and that's really all it is at this point. But you see these flashes where, every once in a while you'll get a drill where it's a handoff and then he's kind of running right at you. You can kind of get the sense for, if I was a defender trying to tackle this guy, what would that be like? And there's a lot of wiggle there, and it was the two that jumped out to me today was Caleb Downs returning a punt and Turbo Rogers running the ball. And it's just like, if I was trying to tackle one of those guys, my torso would go one direction, my lower legs would go the other. It would be like those magicians that saw the people in half. That would have been me trying to tackle some of those guys. But real, yes. Where it would just be like, and now I'm two people. Congratulations. You see it with him early, and he's listed at 5'8". Now, when you're listed at 5'8", it's never because you're 5'9.5". You might be 5'7", but you see him get lost behind that offensive line, and then all of a sudden he pops out, and it's like, oh, there he is, and there he goes. Yeah. And if Bo Jackson, he's probably, I was very impressed with Bo Jackson all through spring, and we saw little flashes from him today as well. He had a nice reception out of the backfield at one point. But man, the freshman running backs, Isaiah West has been hurt. He's still not full go. But the other two freshman running backs, Bo Jackson and Turbo Rogers, you can see it right away. There is not a lot of, I wonder what Carlos Loughlin sees here. It's like, oh, nope, I see it. I get it.
Yeah, and James Peoples, again, looks really, really good and just so sudden and I'd say jittery, but that doesn't, jittery just is like back and forth, east and west. Like he can jitter north and south. Kind of, it's like he can move all over the place and pick up yards. And I continue to like what I'm seeing from Samuel Dixon. Was Sam Williams Dixon on last year's roster? On this year's roster, listed as Samuel Dixon. Looks more comfortable running between the tackles. So liking what I see from the running backs. But again,
and C.J. Donaldson too.
Yeah, for sure.
We didn't talk about C.J. Donaldson. He is this spring. You sort of saw him in the spring game. He didn't run much, but when he ran, it was kind of right up the gut. And he was moving the pile and picking up yards. You see that again, and I think he was another one who you saw maybe out of the backfield once or twice. If these guys can be weapons in the passing game, we were talking earlier that if you figure Texas is probably going to try and do the same thing to Jeremiah Smith that they did the last time. So now that's shifting some guys out of the out of the box and taking them away. That's going to open some stuff up for Max Clare in the passing game and through down the seam. But also, man, you get those guys out. You get those guys dropping off the line of scrimmage, and you're spreading the field out. You just dump one off to one of those running backs in the flat, and if they can make a guy or two miss, we saw an Ohio State running back make a pretty big play in the pass game against Texas in the Cotton Bowl. You could see it again.
Well, and Carlos Loughlin has told him you can't just run the ball at Ohio State. You've got to be a complete player, and so catching the ball is going to be a big thing. And we've seen quite a bit of east-west stuff in these first 2 days. Sure, they'll start getting more north and south, but yeah, I very much expect the running backs to be involved, especially with C.J. Donaldson, who came to college as a receiver and then was moved to tight end and then moved to running back as a true freshman. But talking with Loughlin back at one of the bowl trips, he's like, yeah, he's a guy that we can do a lot of different things with, and he's dropped weight to make sure that he can be more readily available for as much of a game as possible. So, yeah, I feel pretty good about the running backs. The quarterbacks are, but no.
Quarterbacks are fine.
Yeah,
I think we came into the fall with the idea that Julian Sanders probably a little bit ahead. Mm-hmm. Lincoln Kienholz has looked perfectly fine the first couple days. So if it is Lincoln Kienholz, it's not a by default thing. No. It's not they're just defaulting to seniority. Like I feel like they're going to be okay with either one, and now it's really more of a ceiling thing rather than can anyone, the old Casey Stengel line about the Mets, can anyone around here play this game? Like they have a couple good choices there, and now the question is just how good/great is that choice this year?
Yeah, and the other thing to keep in mind is that I think we can credit the defense for the lack of downfield stuff, because those reads aren't there, and so the corners are playing well and the safeties are playing well, and I think they're showing that they're pretty deep at corner. Now they have 4 outside corners that they like, right? And so they've got a good 2 deep there. I think they're doing well, and of course they're figuring out the safety stuff. I was talking with Matt Patricia about the safeties. Caleb Downs continues to move around, and it was something that we've talked about where I suggested that, when Malik Hartford's in, Caleb Downs goes to strong safety. When Jalen McLean's in, Caleb Downs goes to free safety. And you're like, well, you can't be too predictable. Matt Patricia was talking about one of the reasons they like Caleb Downs wherever is because he can communicate with everyone and get everybody on the same page. But also, they can show him at any position, and that's not necessarily where he's going to be coming from. And that's something he talked about. I asked him about how do you make sure you're not predictable. And he's like, obviously self-scouting, but as we know, just because a guy is lined up at nickel doesn't mean he's not going to be the deep safety because of, a receiver goes into motion. So they're still working on getting everybody capable of playing every spot. Like, sure, Caleb Downs can.
Yeah.
But in the defense that they want to run, the safety also has to be able to play the nickel. The nickel has to be able to play safety. And so you're seeing some of that going on right now.
Well, and I want to make sure we're sort of explaining the why behind that, where you don't want to be too predictable, where they kind of ran into this a little bit under Jim Knowles at times, where you could predictably use motion to get, okay, if I use motion, if I started this formation and I use motion, then they're going to rotate, and they're going to rotate predictably in this way. This is something that Ross Fulton talked about a number of times.
Georgia got him on it for a long touchdown with Lathan Ransom rotating to the slot.
Yep. So you've got to be able to have multiple answers and multiple ways to approach things and be able to disguise things as well. If you can disguise things, then that doesn't necessarily make it harder on you, but it makes it potentially a lot harder on the offense. So being able to sort of disguise things is really, really important. And this goes to the same thing we talk about with the wide receivers, where they want guys to be able to play outside and in the slot, because then you can put Marvin Harrison in the slot, and boy, does that create a mismatch potentially. We saw that with Emeka Egbuka playing in the slot, but also outside. You're going to see, wide receivers doing that all the time. You want to be able to do that with your safeties as well, so that you're not predictable. So it's not just, you point out the mic, there's the mic, okay, but you're also like, okay, there's the deep safety, there's the boundary safety, there's the nickel. If you can sort of be a little bit more unpredictable, that complicates things. That's when you get confusion, and that's when you get turnovers.
Anything else from practice stand out to you that you wanted to get in here?
we didn't see a ton of offensive line versus defensive line stuff really, and that's just, it's not a padded practice. I believe Matt Patricia said that Saturday's practice will be padded, so maybe potentially we'll see a little more of that. So a bunch of tackling drills. Like day one was a lot of, the fun visual drills were they're falling on fumbles or they're scooping up fumbles. Today they had the big donut, so they're doing the take a running leap at the donut, you land on the big mattress pad kind of thing. So a lot of you're in the sort of fundamentals portion of a lot of this stuff, and a lot of wide receivers. You run a route, you run a little hitch, you catch it, then you toss the ball, and then you run a different route, and you catch it, and you're just trying to work on getting the right number of steps, ending on the right foot to show, hey, I'm ending on the foot that I would be running to run a hook or a curl or whatever, and then keep going. So you're doing it to then sell it in the future for a some kind of a stop and go kind of route. So lots of fundamental stuff like that.
Let's move to the interviews, because Matt Patricia, we talk about how he's good at getting players to do little things in terms of like, you're good at this, so we're going to work on this. We're going to specialize you in this, but also maybe add this. And he was talking about that. He said one of the goals of that is obviously, yes, you want to accentuate what players can do, but also it forces the offense to study, like really predict and study each player what they're going to have to deal with. And so the different things that you can have gives them certainly the edge of having them do stuff, but then it also just takes time of the offense trying to worry about all of the different ways that player might be involved. But yeah, he still seems very, very excited about all of the toys that he has to work with here at Ohio State in terms of just, what can I do with Sonny Styles? What can I do with Arvell Reese? What can we do with Caleb Downs? And then mixing those safeties in behind him, or with the nickel, or whatever. And he was also asked about Kenyatta Jackson.
Yep.
And he was like, I co-sign everything that everybody's saying about Kenyatta Jackson. I would completely agree with. He was talking about how Kenyatta Jackson, like, immediately he's like, put me in front of every line. I want to go first. I want to do everything. I want to show everybody how to do everything. I want to be pushed. I want to push everybody. And he even said, like, Kenyatta makes him work harder. Like, when you're watching him work, it's like you don't want your players outworking you. And certainly other players watching that, seeing somebody that is a leader like that, setting the example, that he seems to really, really like Kenyatta Jackson. And at this point, the way everybody's talking about him, like, I'm not going to, but he only has 2.5 or 3.5 career sacks. Like, oh, whatever.
Yeah, let me tell you about the guys who were here last year who he was playing behind. But, your best teams are your teams where your best players are your hardest workers. Because then you don't have, I'm going to coast on this and I can. What do you hear about Jeremiah Smith all the time? What do you hear about Caleb Downs all the time? Well, now you're hearing about how well Kenyatta Jackson's doing, but also how well Kenyatta Jackson's working. Like, those are the guys. Sonny Styles, you hear that about him all the time. You're hearing it about some of the offensive linemen. Austin Searveld, maybe one of their best offensive linemen. He was an Iron Buckeye for another, a second time. I mean, this is the stuff that's what you need in order to be a great team. Is not just have talent, but also have leaders who are going to also sort of set the standard. And that's been kind of one of the mantras around here for years, where we talk all the time about the wide receivers going back to Evan Spencer, and then he showed
Spencer,
Terry McLaurin,
and Dixon, and
those guys how to do it, and then they showed Olave how to do it, and Wilson, and on and on and on. But you have that in a lot of different rooms, and that's sort of, I think these guys all saw from JT Tuimoloau and Jack Sawyer and Cody Simon and all those guys. Here's what it takes. Denzel Burke. Here's what it takes to be great. And that, so now you've seen it, and now the decision is just, do I want to do that or do I not want to do that? And it seems like a lot of the people are making the decision that they do want to do that. One thing that strikes me every time we see Matt Patricia is just how much he's smiling out there. Like, and I'm watching it, and at first I was like, is this just sort of like is this like a show? Is this and it's just, but it's like every time we see him, he's out there smiling. He's out there very enthusiastic, very energetic. And I was thinking today about what he was discussing some of the difference between in college and the NFL. And the first thing you hear from coaches all the time is hash marks, and then the hash marks are much wider in college. You end up with formation to field, formation to boundary. It's a much bigger difference than in the pros, and that does make a very big difference. But he also was talking about some formation stuff and all that kind of stuff. And I was thinking, something else that's different about college and the NFL? The talent discrepancy between the top teams and even the middle teams is night and day difference. The top NFL team to the worst NFL team is what, a 2-touchdown favorite?
Right, yeah.
17-point favorite.
It's rare to see something like that.
Yeah, it's rare to see something even in 17, 20 points. Ohio State might be a 17 to 20-point favorite in 8 games this year. 9 games this year. So he has all these different players and all these really talented players that he can find these unique roles for. That you're stretching what could be, if you just sort of played it straight up, it could be a 20-point advantage, a 24-point advantage. Like, let's come up with a creative way to make this a 31-point advantage, and to have all of those options, all of those players available. That is just, I'd be smiling too.
Yeah, because you're coming from a place where you are trying to find 2 points, 3 points, and an advantage, and you're combing everything that you've got and your 20-odd defensive players, because you don't have a lot, a 53-man roster. So then now you're like, well, I'm just going to – I have so much more room for activities and the things that you can not only come up with, but pretty good chance this will work.
Yeah.
And the trial and error, and you've got you got a month to work through it. But he did say the other big difference is it would be nice to have some preseason games. Where, opening up against Texas is not ideal, but you've got to be ready. That's one of the fun parts about college. NFL players complain about preseason all the time.
Yeah.
And coaches not so much.
Yeah, you complain about it if you have it. You complain about it if you don't. And the closest analog that they have to preseason games is they've got the scrimmages inside Ohio Stadium, and you're going to have those coming up not this Saturday, not the 2nd of August. You're going to have one presumably on the 9th of August. You're going to have one presumably on the 16th of August. That's where you're going to work out a lot of the kinks. Because he was talking about just the mechanics of the event and the mechanics of getting the play calls down from the booth and talking on the headsets and all that kind of stuff. Getting all that stuff sorted out. They're going to do that. They'll figure that out. But that's going to be happening during the scrimmages, because you don't have the preseason game against the Jets in Canton coming up. You got to figure that out. They have opportunities to do that, but it's going to look a little different.
Was he asked if he's going to be upstairs or downstairs?
He was not, but I'm sure he's going to be upstairs. I can't imagine. We get asked this a lot, and I was not over with Brian Hartline, but I assume that Brian Hartline is going to sort of, they'll both probably try being upstairs during the scrimmages. I can't come up with a scenario where it doesn't make sense for them to both be upstairs, because Hartline, you've got Ryan Day on the sideline already. So you've got an offensive guy down there. You want someone upstairs, because those are going to be guys who are probably talking a little bit on the headset. And then, what did you see? What did you see? And if you're both in the same place, then you got to bring in a third party. And they have Devin Jordan, who's the assistant wide receivers coach, who has been here for quite a while. Obviously, former Ohio State player, just like Brian Hartline, knows the room extraordinarily well, knows how Brian Hartline likes to do everything extraordinarily well. You have Devin Jordan on the sideline running the wide receiver stuff. You have Brian Hartline upstairs. No one, I don't think, has said that out loud, but having Patricia and Hartline upstairs makes just perfect sense in my mind.
Yeah, and I wasn't over with Brian Hartline too much, because we had everybody going at the same time.
Yeah.
So you were with Patricia mostly, had to run over with some receivers. And I don't know that Brian Hartline had anything major to say, because he also said, he was asked, hey, give us your impression of the first 2 days. Like, well, anymore, because they can't spend more time with them during the summer. It doesn't really necessarily feel like the beginning of something. It's the continuation of spring and summer. And he did say everybody, the team, had a good summer. Everybody's bigger, stronger, faster, all of those things that they should be getting during the season. And then now this is just a continuation of it. And you build up. But I don't know that there's anything... I shouldn't say I don't know that there's anything breaking from Brian Hartline, because I'll say that, and everything on Twitter right now is probably about what Brian Hartline said, and I'm totally oblivious to it.
Yeah, I did not hear it. I didn't hear like an audible gasp or anything like that. So I think you're probably okay. One thing that Matt Patricia did mention C.J. Hicks at one point. He's up to 243. He looks, you mentioned guys getting bigger, stronger, faster. He looks noticeably bigger than the spring. And we got an updated roster for day 2 and with updated heights and weights, and he's up to 243. So I think he was in the 230s this spring. So he looks like a defensive end now. He doesn't look like a linebacker in the process of turning into a defensive end. He looks like he's ready to play some kind of role, and he's the kind of guy that Matt Patricia, like, find a role for that guy. There's going to be a role for him somewhere, because there's lots of different unique skill sets in that room. It feels like he's probably one of those guys.
And as James Laurinaitis said this spring, when the news came out or when he found out that they're hiring Matt Patricia, the first player he thought of was C.J. Hicks and what this could do for him. And, we'll continue to see that. We also talked with receivers.
Yep.
I spent some time with Brandon Inniss, who is just fantastic. He's been didn't redshirt as a true freshman, but hardly played. Then was a backup last year, and now is primed for a starting role. And he's always been an energy guy, but now he's more of an energy guy. And as he said, it's like Jeremiah doesn't talk much. Carnell is talking more, but he is one of the leaders of this room. It's a kind of, the top 3 guys are all leaders, and Bryson Rogers is a leader as well. So it's he's maybe the vocal, the voice of the room, but this guy is so excited to finally be a regular piece of the offense. He's dropped weight. He's faster and he's quicker, and he said he'd never been a backup anywhere until he got to Ohio State. And
meet Emeka Egbuka.
Yeah, and I'll tell you something about that in a bit as well. But like you get to Ohio State and it's like, this is different because I'm not playing, but also I understand that where I am is extremely beneficial. And once I get on the field, everybody will see what I can do. But the development and the learning, and the guys that have come through Ohio State, was he ever tempted to leave? He's like, his people around him, he mentioned like his financial advisor is basically like, stay put. Like this, you're in the right place. It's just going to, take a little bit of time.
Let me explain to you the concept of long-term dividends.
Right. Yeah. And, because Emeka was not supposed to come back last year.
Right.
Then he gets hurt, and so then it's like, now I got to wait again. But he's been patient. I think patience is done. He's ready to get going. He was talking about practice out here today. He was asked about Caleb Downs, who's been lining up at nickel a little bit. So what's that like? He's like, the problem with it is that Caleb Downs knows the play before it's going to happen, and so like he's lined up against Caleb Downs lines up over Brandon Inniss, and then Downs calls the play out that the offense is running, and Brandon Inniss is like, well, this is not going to work. I know this one's not going anywhere. Has he been doing
some in-person advanced electronic scouting?
Perhaps. And so then he was asked, is Caleb Downs the smartest player you've ever played with? He's like, no. Do you know the answer?
I'm not on the team, so...
Emeka Egbuka.
That's, okay.
Like the high-level conversations.
Yeah,
the high-level conversations with Emeka Egbuka. That's another reason why Brandon Inniss played some last year, but he learned a lot last year from Emeka Egbuka.
Wasn't Emeka Egbuka the one where the video on the sideline against Notre Dame, where he's pointing
Turn
out
your
like,
foot in.
Pointing out the little coverage things that ended up with the third and Jeremiah play. Yeah, I mean that's. They do not have a lot of dum-dums in this building. It is you could be sort of selective about character and football IQ and all that kind of stuff, because they do have, there is a certain draw to come to play for Ohio State, so they could be pretty selective about that stuff. Speaking of players who are pretty good at wide receivers, Jeremiah Smith was asked about, someone asked, what has it been like getting back into it after taking a break? And he's like, a break? No, I don't think Jeremiah Smith has taken a break. No, he has been pretty active. It sounds like. So yeah, he's he was happy to be back out there and happy to be sort of counting the days down to Texas. But it does not sound like he took a long vacation between point A and point B of his offseason.
Doesn't it take 2 months to film an Adidas commercial?
Yeah, I don't think so, no. He was also, speaking of that, asked about sort of being a celebrity and what that's like, and he's like, I love to just go to the store. He mentioned going to Target, which I don't know if Target's a sponsor of his or not. If not, missed opportunity there. But he talked about just not being able to just go to the store, like just being a celebrity, just to the point where you're going out in public and you're just getting mobbed everywhere you go. So that's sort of been an adjustment for him, which at the age of 19, like that's got to be weird.
It was tough when it happened for us.
Yeah, for sure.
But we were much older.
He was also asked about being able to play faster now that he knows, because he's talked about knowing, recognizing stuff better, recognizing what the defense is trying to do, all that kind of stuff. One of the part of the quote was, "It's going to be scary this year." That was a direct quote. And then just stuff about IDing coverages pre-snap and things like that. Just everything was going a little fast for him last year, and you saw how it went then. So now the game is going to slow down a little bit for him this year, and oh boy, what might that look like? He was also asked about Texas, another shot at Texas after how the Cotton Bowl went. And, the short answer is, yeah, man, looking forward to it. So I think he's looking forward to the opportunity to potentially make a little bit of a statement there.
And Ryan Day talked about that at media days, where the more things slow down for Jeremiah Smith, it speeds up for the defense. And that's a very good thing for the Buckeyes. Mylan Graham, he's like, all I want to do is help the team however I can, offense or special teams. Because I asked him, like, what's a realistic role for you this year? He's like, whatever,
Yeah.
And again, he watched last year. He watched Brandon Inniss. Like, he learned from Brandon Inniss, hey, man, sometimes you can come in here with 5 stars. Doesn't matter. Look at the room that you're coming into. This is why you came here. Mm-hmm. This is, Brian Hartline was your first offer. He said you could play here. He thinks you can play here. But there's Jeremiah, there's Carnell, there's a Mecca.
Yeah.
So understand that. And but he getting into the spring last year, or not getting in for spring last year, as we know, set him apart, set him back. But he seems completely comfortable talking, comfortable like with whatever. And again, I think it's going to be hard for Brian Hartline to keep him off the field, in as much as you would put a 4th or 5th receiver on the field with these 3 receivers.
Well, I look at him and I just go, if he's out there, it'll be fine. Like, right. I don't know how much of a drop off there is. It could be a drop off from Jeremiah Smith to literally any other receiver on the planet at this point. But I don't know how much of a drop off there is. There's going to be some, from Carnell Tate to Mylan Graham or Brandon Inniss to Mount. Not that they're playing the same position, but you're going to have probably a little bit of a drop off. But I don't think it's going to be a huge one, and I don't think it's going to be big enough that it'll keep him off the field. He's another one of those guys where you look up, it's like, oh, there's someone's making a play over there. You're watching one field and someone's making a play over there, and you look, it's like, oh, it's Mylan Graham again, making another play. And that, again, you're not bringing anyone to the ground. It's easy to just keep running when the defender would have probably tackled you normally, but you just keep looking up, and there's number 5 making another play, and this is a good secondary.
Yeah.
Like, the 1s and the 2s in the secondary. This is the 2s in Ohio State secondary are probably among the better secondaries that this team's going to go up against this season. And you're still seeing them make plays, and that to me is a pretty good, like, there's probably some there for him this year for sure.
Yeah, he looks, and he makes the number 5. The legacy of the number 5 looked pretty good. Mm-hmm. Torian Washington.
The first place everyone's mind goes, yes.
Michael Wiley is a true freshman.
Uh-huh.
And I believe that's it.
Yeah, that's it. Can't think of anyone more recent in the early 2020s or so.
So anything else from today that you wanted to touch on before we get out of here?
I think we've touched on everything, and if not, great news. We will be back here tomorrow to talk about it more. I can go over and end the show if we need to, but I think we're good. Okay.
All right, so that will do it. I want to thank you all for tuning in. We will be back tomorrow as well, because we'll be back at practice tomorrow. So thank you all for tuning in, and we'll talk to you guys later.